he's an actual promoter of commerce, but one of the big keys in all this is ultimately having more of that wealth, that venture capital from the angel investors, that unfortunately goes away almost every year, come back into the state of Wisconsin. If you look, I mean, literally, Barry Alvarez is a good example, thinking about being on campus here. He's got a place in Naples. If you go down to Naples and you watch a Badgers or Packers game, you're going to find most of the bars in that are going to be filled with red or blue or red or green and gold on most Saturdays or Sundays, because there's a lot, particularly during the winter, because there's a lot of retirees who've gone down there. Now, you know, when they go down for a couple months after Christmas, it's one thing to go down there when the weather climate's bad. But for most of our retirees who are down there, it's not just because of the weather, it's because the tax climate is bad. And what happens is that they stay down there 6 or 7 months, excuse me, sooner or later it starts moving on, and next thing you know, it's 8 or 9 months, it's 10 months, so they're not back very much. Well, where does their venture capital go? Most angel investors want to dabble in what's going on. They don't want to do it every day. So in your case, say you had an angel investor that said, I like what your idea is, I want to help you out. And they say, I've got not only wealth, but I've got some business savvy. I've been through it before, I can help you with a good business plan. There's somebody that probably not only putting some venture capital behind your project, would say, I want to come in once a week and just talk to you about how things are going. I want to look at your plan, I want to make it, which is perfect. Because in your case, you got a brilliant idea, you got something exciting, you tie the two together, it's a great mix. What that venture capitalist is, instead of sitting in Madison or Wauwatosa where I live or up in Wausau, is sitting down in Tampa, chances are he's going to put that money down. And we know that's not just, you know, that's not just a theory. I see it, I run the zoo amongst other things at the county. And in the case of the zoo, a couple of my biggest fundraisers for the Zoological Society are now some of the biggest fundraisers for the Naples Zoo down in Florida, because that's where they go. It's where they spend their time, that's where they invest their money. We need to change that so people like you have more money behind your project. Sure.
How are we going to keep our promises in regards to pensions and health care benefits? We don't have the money saved for it.
Yeah. In our case, it's one of those, and that's a challenge I took on 8 years ago. When I first came into Milwaukee County, the guy before me, part of the reason why I came in was because there was a huge pension scandal. My predecessor had tried to grab millions for himself and his friends in these lump sum backdrops. And for years now, we've had to pay for that. Now, thankfully, we put in place some reforms that helped us essentially refinance that debt and save us about $237 million, which is interesting. Classic of this campaign. If you look at the ads that the mayor's running, which are almost all attack ads now, one of them implies that we borrowed for our pension. We didn't. We actually refinanced ours, just like if any of you have families where you refinanced the house with the market changes out there. In doing so, we got a better rate in return, and so that saved us $237 million. But how do we do it at the state? Well, we've got to change the way that we fund this. Classic example. I said earlier this summer that I would ask all state workers, myself included, in this next budget to make the employee contribution to the state pension system. You go outside of government, for those that still have pensions, most have 401ks type system, but for those that do, the employee makes the employee contribution, i.e. the name, and the employer makes the other. That one change would save us $360 million in the next year. Just one change of it. Now, in my case, I'm so serious about it, I won't wait till the budget. I'll make it on January 3rd, the first day I take the oath of office. Sure.
I know when the market interchange was finished, Mayor Barrett praised it and said it was under budget and on time. But when the zoo interchange needed fixing, he didn't really hear anything about that. I'm just wondering what you would have a plan to do to fix our infrastructure before a bridge collapses like it did in Minnesota, because I know the entire country's infrastructure is falling apart.
Yeah. Well, great point. It's one where the mayor and I differ, because about 5 years ago, the mayor sent a letter to state leaders over here asking them not to act on the zoo interchange, which is where this past year we had the troubles with having the emergency come in and fix the bridges there, mainly because of a very small group of politically active people who had convinced him and the previous mayor not to make any capacity changes in that area between the Marquette, particularly by where the stadium is, where Miller Park is, all the way up to the zoo interchange. To me, that's the head in the sand mentality. Since I've been the county executive, I've advocated for a freeway system that meets the capacity needs we have, and certainly as governor, I do the same. To do that, though, you need a couple things. One, you need to stop what the current governor has done, and that's raiding the transportation fund. 2 prior budgets, he took about $1.3 billion out of that fund and put it into other things in the budget. You can't do that. Again, we all pay gas tax and vehicle registration fee for our cars and trucks. That money should go into fixing the roads, because that's what, it's a user fee. So I would stop that rate and put that money into fixing roads and bridges. The other part is, again, goes back to your question about the train. We got to list priorities. We have higher priorities of things, not only there, but I-90 from the state line all the way up here to Madison, all the way through up to the Dells. Right now is under capacity, or it's over capacity usage. The road needs to be widened in probably either direction. You've got the Home Bridge in Milwaukee, you've got the Zoo Interchange, you've got other projects across the state. Highway 10, which was expanded from the Oshkosh-Appleton area over to Stevens Point, has been very effective. On the other side, the folks at Marshfield would like to see that go all the way through. That can't happen if you're raising the fund, or if you're taking $7.5 to $10 million a year up for a train instead of fixing the roads and bridges we have. That's really the contrast between Tom Barrett and I when it comes to issues like that. Sure.
What do you think the best argument is against someone that believes the best way to create jobs is through government spending and then let the deficits go up without paying for it?
Well, part of the best argument these days is looking at the federal government, because we've seen, $1 trillion and more spending has only exacerbated the problems with unemployment in this country, and I think taking us down the wrong path. You look, again, a generation ago, when I was before college, you look at what President Reagan did in the 1980s, which is the closest thing to the recession we have right now. When the Reagan economic package went in 1983, fully enacted with the tax cuts, slashed the marginal tax rate. What we saw from 1983 to the end of the decade was the largest peacetime economic boom in American history. 21 million new jobs were created, 5 million new businesses. And irony of all ironies, you hear a lot of people say, well, if you cut taxes, how do you pay for that? Well, those tax cuts at the federal level in the 80s actually showed us the opposite was true. It actually increased the amount of revenue into the federal treasury by the end of that decade. So if you put more money, your point about your startup, eventually you want to just be a startup, you want to make money. Well, if you make it easier for you to take, once you're successful in a few years, I'm being optimistic here, and you go from a couple employees to maybe 25 employees, well, we give you a marginal tax rate that makes it effective and an incentive for you to take the dollars you get and then reinvest it back in your company through more capital investments and through more employees. That creates more jobs. It puts more people to work. You have more people working, the revenues, even though it's a lower tax rate, actually goes up. Because it's kind of like, any of you have jobs, selling retail. Like say, my son, one of my sons works at a pizza place in Wauwatosa, but whether it's there or say at a Walgreens, if you're selling a product here at this price and you sell 100 of them, okay, you make X amount. But if you drop the price down here, you put it on sale, and suddenly now you sell 1,000, your profit per piece is higher up here, but your profit overall is better down here. Because if you're selling 1,000 versus 100, you got the volume. And that's really the same principle with putting more money back in the hands of employers and people, is the more you do that, the more people you work, the better the economy gets. It's going to help your budget as well as helping the economy. Everybody's ready to go back to studying, or at least go back to relax. But thanks very much for coming out. I know Nick has helped. I know a bunch of you have helped me out with this, but I appreciate it. We've been handing out, I think, a gazillion, I don't know what the exact numbers, but those magnets with the pizza numbers on. For me, that was always the key. It was either pizza or Roman noodles. Some things don't change, right? For me, that's how I lived, off of pizza or Roman noodles and a little plug-in pie, I think, when I was at college. But I know we've got a number of you have helped us hand those out, the magnets to put up on fridges and dorms and so forth. But we appreciate all the help. Appreciate you coming out today. And if you like the help, obviously Nick can plug you in, because between now and November 2nd, we're going to need a lot of help. And like I said, my presence here, and I'll be back again just to tell you, we're not taking any vote for granted. Tell anybody you know about that. We appreciate y'all.